Show podcast. I'm Darbi.
I am Kaitlin. Today we have Dr. Ryan Easterling with us.
What an honor.
What an honor.
Honor to be here. Thanks, y'all, for inviting me.
My friend and my doctor.
That never gets weird, does it?
We've had some
Not
weird
for me either,
moments,
don't
but
worry.
it's fine. It's fine. We wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm
We're really glad you're here.
really excited to be here.
What does Kelsey think about you being on the podcast?
I don't know. I think she's excited that I'm going to be here, but kind of nervous about what I might say. Yeah, so I told her I'd try to leave anything with her kind of out of it.
Well, we'll have her
Fair
on
enough.
here, and she can share her own story.
There you go. Her stories are probably a lot better than mine. So.
No, we want them all. We want them all.
Well, so you are married to Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
You have twin girls.
I do.
Yes. So
Lily
you.
and Layla, or
Yes.
as Savvy calls them, the girl with the cute faces. The
They
girls
are
with the cute
very
faces.
cute.
They
are
love
so
them
cute.
some Savvy.
Oh, I
That's
know.
for
She
sure.
loves them. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, you are the doctor, I think,
doctor.
around town. Carried us through COVID for sure around here. And so, I love that about you. And obviously you're amazing in so many different ways. But I want to get to know Ryan, not just Dr. Easterling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just kind of tell me, how did you and Kelsey end up in Graham? Like, how did y'all get here? How are you a doctor? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's probably my testimony, if I'm being
Great.
honest with you, because
Perfect.
through, it would seem like sheer luck, I ended up here. I had no intentions of being a doctor, definitely no intentions of coming to Graham. So Kelsey and I both grew up in Mejia.
Okay.
We dated during my senior year of high school.
Which is a tiny town in Texas, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like
So it's Central
T-tiny.
Texas, like 6,500 people about that
Okay.
time. We were a 3A school then. I think it's 3A again now. Went 4A for a while.
Okay.
Small school, 115-ish people in my graduating class.
Okay, small.
So we dated during my senior year of high school, and then I went off to A&M, but Kelsey knew she wanted to study theater at TCU. And so the long distance thing was tough. Kelsey was 2 years behind me in school, and so we ended up just going our separate ways at that point. And I went to A&M, just like Mike did. He talked about it last week.
Yeah.
And finished up 4 years of undergrad and 4 years of medical school there. And so about that time, I was looking for a residency program because I had gone through as I graduated from undergrad, and I was looking like, what do I want to do? Sophomore and junior year, going, man, I don't know. I like science a lot, but I like people. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to be doing a bunch of bench research. Mm-hmm. And so I tried a bunch of things. I shadowed everyone I could to not be a doctor. I was like, I don't want to go to med school. That's so awful and expensive and stressful and long.
Yeah.
So I shadowed a dentist, shadowed a pharmacist. I
Oh
worked
my
with
gosh.
physical therapists. I did everything I could, and just everything brought me back to I need to go to med school. So I studied, took all the tests, thankfully got into one, and stayed in College Station to do that for 4 more years. So when I finished up with that, the residency that I chose to go to was John Peter Smith in Fort Worth, because I wanted to do family medicine, a little bit of everything. Out of nowhere, Kelsey sends me a message on Facebook. We haven't spoken in 7 years
I
or
love
so.
this. I love where this is going.
Not because, we had a terrible breakup or anything like that, just because we had been going different ways. I was in College Station, she was in Mejia, and then in Fort Worth, and then she did Teach for America in Fort Worth. But she said, hey, I just saw that you saw your picture on Facebook. I just wanted to catch up and see where you were. And I told her, well, I'm about to start residency. I'm going to be a doctor, and my residency training is in Fort Worth. And she goes, no way. I finished up with school.
No way.
And
I had no idea.
2 years later, she was doing Teach for America in Fort Worth.
I love it.
Wow.
So
Great.
we ended up meeting up and started dating again, and dated all through my residency, and then got married towards the end of it. And
So
that's
is history,
That's
huh?
right. Ended up in Graham, the same kind of thing, based on sheer luck, right? Because God would not allow me to screw it up, basically. So my plan was that I would finish residency, get a good job, which was offered to me back in Mejia. So Kelsey and I were going to move back home, where my parents still were and still are,
Oh, okay.
and raise our family there. So they were actually paying me a stipend from the next hospital down from Mejia in Groesbeck. And they paid me this monthly stipend during my residency so that I would commit to work there after I finished. And that was a godsend. We needed that money to make ends meet during residency. But then one day during residency, we have a career fair that you have to attend. Doesn't matter if you know where you want to go or not. You have to go in. You have to get signatures that say, hey, I spoke with this many of the recruiters and I did my part.
Yeah.
Well, one of those people was John Lucas.
Oh.
And he had apparently talked to my program director and said, hey, it looks like you're interested in the kind of medicine that we do. You should come out and check it out. I said, no, thanks. Johnny, I appreciate your offer, but I'm going back to Mahia to raise my family. My wife and I are both from there. And he said, yeah, that's great, but you should come out and see it. So eventually he convinced me, and I came out here, and they got me a place to stay at the Wildcatter, which was obviously amazing.
Yeah.
So I came out on Friday, and they showed me everything around Graham and said, what do you think? And I was just sitting there going, how am I going to tell my wife that we're uprooting our life plan and coming here? Wow. That took all of one day. So what did I do? I brought Kelsey, and we stayed at the Wildcatter, and I showed her everything that Graham has to offer on one Friday, and then we're sitting there together Saturday morning going, how are we going to tell our parents that we're not moving back to Graham or to Mahia, right? And so we brought our parents, and so they both, obviously when they came out here and said, hey, what an opportunity this is, how amazing is all of this, it was obvious that this is where we were supposed to be. And at the time I didn't realize it. I wasn't really going to church. I wasn't praying. I wasn't reading like I should have been. It was just God was in the background on all of these decisions, just saying, hey, maybe you should do this. Maybe you should go and stay in that place. It'd be nice. You have a weekend off. Go see what Graham's like. It won't hurt anything.
Yeah.
And then, here we are, back together with Kelsey.
Yeah.
Started a family, living in Graham, of all places, and practicing medicine. So none of which I would have predicted, freshman year of college.
Oh, yeah, no. I love those stories.
I do too.
And that's most people's stories. Like you said, we make a plan, but then God orders our steps, and we end up in a place we didn't ever think we'd be.
Yep.
Well, and eventually probably your in-laws will be here. They're going to, right? Like there's...
I think that's the
who
plan.
Who knows? Yeah.
So
and Kelsey's sister lives here
she
now.
moved here, a couple of years after we did.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty cool.
Just kind of reestablishing things here, and it's been fantastic. I mean, God has just blessed us tremendously from, like I said, not studying, not reading, not praying, not going to church, all the way back up to finding High Ridge and really refocusing in that, right? Finding how important that is and how much God can do to ground us and guide us and lead us and grow us.
Yeah.
So now tell me, how did you get to the moment where you felt God drawing you kind of to Him in a closer way?
That, I think, starts with trying out different churches in Graham. Kelsey and I, when we moved here, so our twins were 7 days old when we moved to Graham.
Oh, wow.
And they were teeny, right?
They were premature, 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And so they stayed in the NICU at JPS for a week. And then we got to take them home. After that, we loaded them up into their car seats, put them in Kelsey's car, and that was that moment when we moved from Fort Worth to Graham. So
what a starting point.
I know.
Yeah, so that was a little stressful.
Yeah, no kidding.
A little crazy. I don't remember about the next 3 months.
Yeah.
But after that, when we were finally able to sleep a little bit again, Kelsey and I started talking, going, we need a community. We just feel like we've moved away from family. We've moved and started our own, but we don't have any support here. We don't have anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
We just kind of felt like we were drifting. And so we tried several different churches here in Graham, and they were all, so nice and welcoming. But when we walked in to High Ridge that first day, I'll never forget this. There were 2 other couples bringing in their twins who were within 2 months each of our girls. There was our set of girls, a set of boys, and a set of boy-girl twins that morning at High Ridge.
That is wild.
That is. What are
we
the
just went, we should probably pay attention to what happens today.
Such a God wink.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a theme in my life is I'm not easily steered. I need very obvious direction, whether it's
I get that.
learning to do things around the house or whether it's from medicine or whether it's from God. He is very intentional when he's telling me something like that. And so he said, hey, look, you should probably be here in this house.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time here over those next few months getting to know people and really kind of getting planted in the church here. And then eventually started looking for what's our next step. And so we started going to different small groups. My first small group was actually with Pastor Zach, which was
Yeah.
a little nerve-wracking at the
course,
time, because
yeah.
I'd been, basically out of church for like 8 years.
Yeah.
But that was great and helped us to grow a lot, kind of as a couple
Yeah.
and individually too. And then working through different small groups, I think, helped a lot.
Yes.
And that was really when things, I think, started to get deeper. It was about a year ago. We were in a small group that Kaitlin was leading, Kaitlin and Mason. And that really was the first time in a very long time that I had been pushed in my faith.
Yeah.
Because I've been pushed plenty in school and in residency for all of those kinds of things. But spiritually, that had not been part of my life.
Yeah.
And so I think that was really when things started to click.
Yeah.
For me specifically, and I think for Kelsey too, that is going to be really important going forward. And we've kind of just tried to make it one of our top priorities ever since.
And now y'all are leading the group.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
That's right.
I was trying to decide a few months ago which group to join before we did Super Series. And I texted Mason. I said, "Hey, Mason, what group are you doing this summer?" And he goes, "Yours."
I love that.
The first time that we had really,
Yeah.
I really led a group. So I led a men's group then, and we're doing our Super Series now, and
Yeah.
going well, I think. I hope.
It's great. I love it. I want to know, Ryan, in the last year, what's been just the personal things that have happened between you and the Lord that there's been a shift? Like, I know just from being in small group with you, like, you're a note taker, right? Like, you will dissect something to the nth degree, which I love. That's the doctor in you. I feel like just
Big time.
like, I want to research this. I want to know what it means. I know you've also just shared like that kind of just being, kind of a little bit more free in your worship. It's like, it's a challenge, right? And it's new and different. And I just want to know what do you feel like the Lord's taught you in this last year? Like, what does your faith look like with Him?
Yeah, I think one of the things that He's taught me recently is that it's okay to be that person, right? It's important to worship and to be open with that, and that I'm still working on, like you said. But I used to be so, not worried, but so almost embarrassed about being the note taker and the nerdy guy who looks deeply into those things.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of my quiet time, especially when I was starting, going, I don't need to be just taking notes and doing all these things and digging into this stuff. But I think I've learned that it's okay. Like, somebody needs to do those things.
Yes,
Yes.
totally.
Right? That's how our knowledge grows.
Yeah.
And I've tried a lot of other things, and it's important to branch out and do different things, I think, in your quiet time too.
Yeah.
But I think when I'm really paying attention and I'm dialed in the mornings and I'm studying something that I feel I'm understanding, like feeling like I'm hearing that from God, makes a big difference to me on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I'm still growing in a lot of things. Obviously, it's harder for me to slow down and to listen. I think a lot of people struggle with listening.
Oh, agree.
Yeah.
But especially for me, and most people, it's not easier to just sit down and start studying, but that's what I do
Right.
for a living, basically. So it's a lot easier for me to sit down in the morning and start studying without listening.
Yes.
And so I think He's taught me that it's
good.
okay to be the studious person,
Yes.
but you've also got to make time to do the relationship building too. And that's where I'm still trying to grow.
Yeah. I love that because if you look at you and Kelsey is Miss Creative, like, think outside of the box.
Absolutely.
And you're a little different, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. As different as
you're
can
our
be.
doctor. You have a mind that understands things to a degree that most of us don't. And so I love that now you're like, well, I want to be that kind of person, but with scripture, with the Bible, and that's why, I'm like, man, you'd be a great teacher, Ryan, because you will flesh something out to where you're like, okay, I've got to figure out what is a denarii? What is a cubit? What is what does this actually mean? So that I can actually know what I'm reading and how to understand it. So I love that, there's been just a shift where I'm like, I can take the way that God created me and the way that my mind thinks, and I'm going to apply it to my relationship with Him and then teach it.
Yeah.
Well, I think how you are in the medical community is probably how you fit into the body. Like, you're so reliable, Ryan, and you just stay the course. And I think that's something that God can look at you and go, man, Ryan stays the course. Ryan is reliable. And so I think you can look at the body as a whole, like the church body, and go, I know what to do because you've studied and you've done the work. And so you're also really calm in that. Like, I feel like you just have such a calmness about, like, I know what to do because I've already done the studying and the research. So I know how to respond, and you're not afraid because you have the knowledge. And I think that's something that the body needs as a whole, just like a physical body does. So I just want to honor you for that. But
Well, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you're a medical doctor. You know science. Science and God don't always go hand in hand,
Sure.
right? The
Yeah.
things of the Lord
Right.
can't always be solved by science. So you shared some, sometimes in the past, like, how do you just like grapple with, okay, well, I know that A plus B equals C in science, but that's not the case with faith. So what do you feel like the Lord's taught you in that?
yeah, that's good.
That's something, I think you said grapple, and I think that's very accurate. Because
Yeah.
I think that's something that, I don't want to say I struggle with.
Yeah.
Because I know kind of where it ends up. At the end of thinking about all of this, I know what I believe. But trying to go back and justify that, sometimes you just
Yeah.
can't make those steps, right?
That's
you can't
right.
go, Mike last week talked about, a man can't live 3 days in the belly of a fish. It can't happen
Yeah.
scientifically.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't know. That's something that I'm constantly looking for more literature. I know that surprises both of you, right? But I'm constantly looking for more information about that kind of a thing because it's hard, right?
Yeah.
You can't necessarily line by line justify each thing. At some point, faith has to enter into it.
That's
And I think
exactly
that's the key, is to know that to an extent you can justify some of this stuff, and then some of it just needs to be left to faith. And that's a really hard gap for a lot of people
Yeah.
to
It
jump,
is,
especially
yeah.
people who spent their lives studying these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I think especially for men, a lot of men do want to see the proof,
Yeah.
the white and black,
Yeah.
the I need to see how this can make sense. How can a virgin have a baby? Like there's
Yeah.
so many things that we could dissect in the Bible that, like you said, don't scientifically or logically make sense. But God, and I think you see that in your own life, in our lives,
yeah.
where you're like, this didn't make sense. This course didn't make sense, but
Yeah.
God gets
Yeah.
the glory when we have to do the thing that requires the most faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ryan Easterling doesn't end up being a doctor in Graham with twins
Yeah.
scientifically, right? That doesn't
Yeah.
happen
No.
because I didn't want to go to medical school, and I was getting a stipend to stay in my hometown, and my family was there, but God,
Yeah, but as you
let us
look
hear one
back,
step at a
faith
time.
was the thing that was most present, his faithfulness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's right.
all his, because at the time I wasn't seeking that, and he
Yeah.
just refused to let me fail. And I think there's a lot of places in my life where you can look at
Yeah.
it that way, is that he just refuses to let me fail. I mean,
That's so good.
Wow. Well, what do you think right now in this season that you're in? What do you feel like God's teaching you? What's he talking to you about?
what's he trying to teach me? Because I feel like
What are we willing to learn is different.
I think one of the things that he's trying to teach me now is to be more present. And I think a lot of us struggle with that. But that's something that Kelsey specifically has always been really good about. She's been so good about that with our girls, about always being there
Yeah.
and playing with them, and understanding that is crucial to their development. That's what she does for a living, basically, is stay
Yeah.
home and teach our girls and raise them. And that's hard for me. And I don't know if it's because I didn't grow up around a lot of young kids. Most people are my age or older, or if it's because, well, I don't know what it is, but I'm really trying to, I think God is really trying to show me, hey, this is important. Like, this is a formative time for them specifically. And,
Yeah.
4 years old is not an easy time.
Yeah.
I don't think there is an easy time.
Yeah.
But so just to kind of be present with my family and take that break and just say, right now we don't have to be productive, right? Right now we
Yeah.
don't have to be studying. And that is really hard for me.
Yeah.
Well, and you've learned a lot just about community, like at the practical part of community. I think we can all say we want it, but when it comes to actually having it,
Yes.
it does require the presence, right? The
It does.
showing up to church, the going to group, the being around your friends, and just the intention in that and living it out. So,
Yeah, I know. And I think, I'll say, Ryan, what I love that I've seen in you, it is a confidence shift in that, I think I'm starting to see that when faith becomes so personal for somebody, there's just a greater amount of confidence that they have.
yeah.
And that, this is what I believe. So, whether I'm with a patient in the room at the doctor's office, like, if I felt led to pray for them, I'm going to do it. You shared with us, like, you've been able to do that. If there's, something going on, like, I know where my source of strength comes from. And I feel like I've seen you just grow in your reliance on the Lord. And it's just been really cool to see as your friend, as Kelsey's friend, and super proud. I'm super thankful to know that there is, a guy like you in our hospitals, in our doctor's offices. Like, it's so settling.
I always think about that moment when I was on a Sunday and someone fell, and you were like,
well, that's happened like multiple
were
times.
there.
Yeah.
I know, it's been a few times.
Yes.
And I've always been so grateful, but I feel like you are learning to do that with all people, and even in spiritual ways. Like, you're going to be able to come alongside them and go, boom, you need this verse, or boom, you need to understand this, and you're just going to be able to bring so much healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the studying that I like to do, I think that comes alongside that, right? Because the more of that I know, the more that I can bring up from Scripture or from past experiences, regarding that, the more it becomes like, what I'm trained to do as a profession, right? Those things, like you said, I can do them in a calm way because someone falling in church is a lot less stressful than the emergency room at John Peter Smith, right? And so when you've got those, those past experiences to kind of fall back on, I think it makes a lot more sense.
Well, I think truth is the best medicine, and you're learning. I think God's just teaching you that truth so that you can apply that medicine to His body, and that's so exciting and so cool.
It is.
So.
Yeah,
and it's fun to be a part of that process too, because like Kaitlin said, that's not something that I really would have done much in the past, right? That's not something that I felt comfortable doing with patients, is praying for them in person or afterwards, or telling them that I'm going to pray for them.
Yeah.
But I think that is the best thing that I can do for a lot of the people that I take care of, right? There are some things that, science is not going to help with.
You're right.
Yeah,
but God can help those things. And if I can help introduce that to them, or if I can help to make that something that's at the forefront of their treatment or their day-to-day life, then that can make a heck of a lot more difference than I can.
That's right.
Wow, that's so great.
I'm so thankful you have that perspective, and you encounter so many people with that perspective. Like, it's huge. It's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for just coming on here, sharing your story with us, and just letting us get to cheer you on in the ways that you're making such a big difference in the community and here in our church. And we'll keep cheering you on.
Well, thank you very much. We'll take all the cheers that we can get, all that. It really builds us up to help keep doing what we have to do.
Keep going.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, we'll see you guys next week.